friends, it's your girl Harpo. Welcome to this episode of Brown Girl Guilt. Today, my guest is Miss Shannon Mann. Shannon is a prominent South Asian woman from BC, known for her multifaceted career and community involvement. She's a realtor, entrepreneur, keynote speaker, and passionate advocate for women's and LGBTQ rights. Shannon is a partner at Team McKnight Realty, the top real estate team in Canada at McDonald Realty. She has a strong background in business and marketing, has founded the globally recognized Pink Orchid Studio, a cosmetics brand and academy that has won numerous awards over the past 15 years. In addition to her real estate and entrepreneurial ventures, Shannon is an influential lifestyle and beauty blogger, sharing insights on health, wellness, and beauty through her platform, Inspired Living with Shannon Mann. Her advocacy work and professional achievements have earned her several accolades, including nominations for the RBC Canadian Woman Entrepreneur of the Year in 2019, 2020, and 2021, and being named one of the top 20 most influential South Asians in BC in 2021. More than all of these things, Shannon is a mother to two lovely boys, Chandan and Jorn, and wife to Pinder, and she's my real life friend. Hi, Shannon. Welcome.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that introduction. I think over time, sometimes you can get so tunnel vision into what's happening in your life that you sometimes you need a minute to kind of step back and be like, wow, I did all that. So thank you for such a lovely introduction.
Yeah, of course. Even when I was looking at it, I was like, there's so many things about you that, I know who you are, but there's so many things from this past lifetime of yours that I don't know. And I think a lot of people also don't know because we don't ever take the time to dig into the person and really get to know them. So even when I was reading your bio, when I first started to write it out for today, I was like, wow, this entrepreneurial business, hustler side of you, I just see, but to see it written out like that is incredible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Definitely. It's been a journey. Business has taught me so much about life, and life has taught me so much about business, and they really intertwine together. And I think a lot of that, and some of the topics we're going to talk about today is really, it's about betting on yourself and having that moment where you really believe and execute rather than let that crippling self-doubt in life stop you from pursuing something because you have fear of failure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I've had enough experiences through life where there's nothing that's failure. It's just life experience. You learn something from everything that you go through in life.
Absolutely. So that's exactly why I want to have you on the podcast, because it's no secret. You are such a popular, sought after person in our community. I have friends and family all over the world who know who you are, and they connotate you to Surrey. It's like, oh, you're from Surrey. Oh, that's where POS Shannon and that, that's where they're from. And Shannon's from that place. It's no secret that is who you are. And a lot of people know you, admire you, look up to you, and are so obsessed with keeping up with you. For real, there's a huge fandom of yours.
Oh, and I think that's sometimes a little wild because my bubble in my circle is I have a great group of friends.
Yeah.
But my bubble is my husband and my two kids, right? And to them, I'm mom. And ironically enough, my husband is not somebody who's interested in social media. Yeah. He's never on there. So we have this Lucy and Desi relationship. Yeah. And I'm that girl he met, in his 20s and married at 25. Things really haven't changed so much. And sometimes, we get invited to cool things. I just got invited to Garnagela with Concord Pacific. So now I'm getting these opportunities where he's like, okay, that's cool. And he wants to come along type of thing. So, but before that, he's never been somebody who's been, and I think that's a difference between sort of some people from he's turning 50 this year. Yeah. And what my generation is, and maybe this next generation where people put so much value on notoriety and being quote unquote famous. And that's one thing I think in our house, it's not something that it's nice to be recognized. It's nice for people to admire you for your work ethic or your family or your values. It's great. But to me, it's not the main goal of anything in life. It's kind of just a nice kind of side effect from all of the endeavors. It's never the end game.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you said that you turned 48 this year. Yes. And it was actually just a few days before we recorded this episode together today. I was invited to your birthday, and I didn't say this to you because I was saving it for the podcast, but I came to your birthday and it was in your backyard of your beautiful home. And you have this gorgeous backyard that really feels like it was designed to host your loved ones, like really bring them in and to be in this like nice little container of love. And I left and I was walking down the street back to my car, and I just kept thinking to myself, what a beautiful life Shannon has built for herself.
Oh, thank you.
Like, what a beautiful life Shannon and Pinder have built for themselves. And I was so inspired. I was walking back just with a smile on my face. I'm like, I want this. And I thought to myself, the last time that I thought that and I felt that way was when I left my first ever 5X event in 2019. And I was walking back to my car thinking, I want to be a part of this world. And it came true. Like, it literally came true. It was so pure. It was such a strong, beautiful sense of inspiration that it actually came true. And as I was walking back to my car, walking away from the life that you've built for yourself, thinking, I want this, I was like, there's no way this won't happen, right? Yeah. You've built such a beautiful life for yourself.
I love beauty. I love hosting. I love creating experiences and giving that to people that I love. And I've always had this motto to build a life you don't need a vacation from. So sometimes I know my team gets a little bit annoyed. They're like, you don't come into the office. Our office is not very glamorous, but I have this beautiful yard and I've got Wi-Fi. I've got a nice office. I've got a printer. You know, I can send contracts from home. Like I really love. And I was thinking that after the birthday party, I had like one day off to sort of like kind of clean up, and I'm like, God, I love it here. Yeah. You know, and I think that if you're always, and Pinder and I always have like a 5-year plan of what we want to do and what we want our life to look like. And then we take the steps to get there. But I did realize something too. As I'm getting older, and my dad passed away quite a few years ago, and kind of trying to unpack why we are the way that we are. Right. And growing up, and there's a few things that I'm obsessed with: Christmas, Halloween, and I think that's part of the hair and makeup, the power of hair and makeup to emit a mood, a personality, and hosting. Those things are things that are very strong in my life. It's because when I was a kid, I wasn't allowed to do those things. Yeah. So my dad was a very violent alcoholic, and he oftentimes, we were not allowed to go visit family. We were very kind of ostracized. I think there were some undiagnosed mental health issues, and we missed family weddings. My mom, if she left the house, he was power calling her every 5 minutes. Where are you? Where are you? He just wanted us home. Yeah. I wasn't allowed to go to sleepovers or birthday parties. So I think as a kid, that I think really messed with me a little bit. And I think some people might look at my life now and be like, wow, she's ridiculous. You know, sometimes to some people on the outside, hosting this many people, but I realize it's because that was taken away from me as a kid. Yeah. So I longed for that. So I've created that in this next chapter of my life. And I do, you know, is the word bougie. Yeah. I am. Yeah. I like nice things. You own it. Yeah. And it's, I don't think that it makes me a bad person. I work really hard for it, but I also share that with my loved ones. And I want life to have a feel to it and an aesthetic to it. And why not if you can do that? And I'm really lucky to have, you know, a great system of friends and a lot of contacts kind of in the event space. So I have a lot of vendors that help out, and we have this amazing space. And especially now being into the real estate space, it's all about connections and forming bonds with people. And I want people to use me when they're having an experience as with a realtor, right? To be their realtor for life. Yeah. Every transaction they do, if they're moving, I want to be the trusted person that they call. Like, and I'm starting, you know, I'm getting those calls where people are like, Shannon, what do you think I should do? What's the market doing? How much, you know, how it should be priced? You know, and that's a lot of trust to put into somebody on a commission-based job. So I've always been a person who does the job well first. The money will always come after, right? And anytime you start anything, if you do it with your full heart, the success comes after. Yeah. If you go into it with your mindset that like, I'm doing this for like a paycheck, you'll never get to that point where you'll reach excellence in my mind's eye. Yeah.
Thank you for saying all of that. I want to go to something that you've just said, and that's really the premise of why I wanted to have you on the podcast, is that the way that your life looks right now is not how it always used to look like. And you've said this in passing, and you and I have been on panels together and we've spoken together. And I've heard you talk about how life was not always like this for you. It was very different, very difficult. And I think it's really important that we talk about that because you and I are around young women all the time who have that right now, who are in that right now.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for them to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to even fathom that they can have a life that's different than that. So can we go back to that? Can we go back to what life used to be like for you? And you know, I want you to feel safe enough to share in any extent that you want.
Yeah.
But I really want people who are listening to know that your life always wasn't like the way that you have it currently. And I want to talk about how you got to here and what it took for you to build this life.
Absolutely. Well, a little bit of background with my family growing up. I think a lot of it stems from that. I think pretty early on, seeing my parents' relationship and how toxic it was made me and made all my siblings very traumatized, right? So out of all of my siblings, I am the only one who can speak Punjabi fluently and who married a South Asian person.
Right.
I think it was just such a bad experience and none of us wanted that for ourselves.
So it disconnected you from the culture a lot?
It did.
Yeah.
And so that's why I like getting involved with 5X now. And I really want to get into, because I do see that there's a lot of beautiful things about our culture and language. But I also have this sort of double-ended, like two-sided relationship with it. As a female South Asian woman, the culture has not served me.
Yeah.
Now things have changed so much, but growing up, like I was not encouraged to go to school. I wanted to go to law school.
Yeah.
Mostly it was my mom, oddly, but she's like, no, do your two-year degree, pay for it yourself and get married.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I think a lot of children, and it's really nice to see this next generation. Like Shannon has a girlfriend, they're dating. She's been raised by two parents that are healthy and encouraging her to follow her dreams. But I did not have that. It was just like, oh no, another girl.
Yeah.
Right. So there's 4 sisters and a brother, and my brother's gay. So there was, you know, family that was telling my dad to divorce my mom because she wasn't producing an heir. And then she finally did. And then he turned out to be gay. And, you know, it's like, there's all this like toxic external pressure. And so they were, you know, for a long time. And I am actually really glad that I grew up in a community. I went to Guildford Park High School, grew up in Wally. There weren't a lot of South Asians. Dad had a drinking problem. We had a farm. He lost it.
Yeah.
And then we went from basement suite to basement suite. He did a few dead end jobs, drove a taxi. And then with my mom's help, he was able to become a heavy duty mechanic and opened up his own shop. But my mom had to go do all his paperwork and like really had to do like babysitting to make sure that we could eat and have a house over our head.
Yeah.
But I learned pretty early on that I was on my own and I needed to make my own way. Nothing
Are you
was
the
gonna
oldest?
be given to me. I act like the oldest.
Yeah.
But I'm second.
Okay.
But I'm definitely the person that people call in my family that's like, what should we do?
They rely on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I took on that like kind of older, the older child energy to be like the responsible one. Yeah. So it was really rough. And then when I met Pinder, his last name, so I didn't, at the time, no one is married yet.
Yeah.
Everyone's sort of dating, right? In Pinder, I saw this like handsome, considerate, quiet. He's not quiet anymore or shy, but kind of socially awkward, nice guy who treated me like an equal. It was like the first Indian man that I met who like wasn't like sexist, you know, and misogynistic. Like sometimes he still says things and I'm like, wait, don't say you cry like a girl, hit like a girl.
Yeah.
Like, that stuff doesn't fly with me.
Yeah.
And then ironically, I had 2 boys, which I was really looking forward to having a daughter and having a little hellraiser to raise, but it wasn't in the cards.
Like a mini Shannon.
Yeah. Like I wanted to like make her the next, you know, Kamala Harris of Canada or whatever, right? But wasn't in the cards.
You would have, honestly. I know you would have.
But you know, I love my boys. And then I was like, okay, God did not give this to me. Yeah. I'm going to raise boys that are going to be good partners to women. So there's like, I think there's so much of that goes on in our culture that's just and in real estate too. Yeah. You know, all the financial decision makers are men. Yeah. And I'm trying to get women to make better decisions. Yeah. And I find it's really funny because, you know, we spend all this money on the wedding. But I feel like in some South Asian cultures, not everybody, guys. I'm not saying this about everybody because I know this is something that's changing. Yeah, really and rapidly. Our vantage
point is also Punjabi, right? We're Punjabi culture, yeah.
But I think that women are controlled. Yeah, and that if we get too many opportunities or too high of an education, there's that saying, "Ena nu fanga lag jana hai," which literally the translation is, she'll have wings.
She'll have wings.
Don't you want wings for your child?
Yeah, she'll fly.
You don't want someone to be stuck in a relationship, in a bad relationship or bad marriage where they can't leave or have a say. But like it's, and I think just not just Punjabi culture, you're seeing this like kind of globally, this kind of, and it's happening in the US with the reproductive rights, and it's like, you know, and a lot of countries, Middle Eastern countries, about taking away rights of women for education and kind of going back to men do this. Men's job is this, and a woman's role is this. And like we're constantly, I think, feel like fighting for our lives and our rights as like people and human beings. So I feel like I'm a little bit more kind of in tuned to that female battle. Right. And so this US politics, what a plot twist turned. Like it's amazing. I like watching it every day, and kind of just seeing the banter and seeing how women are really, you know, if we say anything crazy, we're hysterical, you know, like you see the kind of tropes. I mean, it plays out, right? Like it's like whatever is happening inside of our homes is happening outside as well, right? I want to go back to when you were saying you met Pinder, and so like tell me what that was like, because you've been pretty open about it, but Pinder was not the same caste as your family. So we're dating. Love ho gaya, you know what I mean? So and his last name was Mann. So I like it, that never mattered to me. Like it's a miracle that I married a Punjabi guy. I told my mom when she had a problem with him that you should be happy, but apparently their last name before they came to Canada was actually Matharu. Okay. And it wasn't Mann. So at some point it got changed to Mann, and they're not Jat, they're the Khan. So my mom then, and this was a very enlightening, very traumatic conversation, but also made me put up some major boundaries with my mother. Especially now being a mom and like playing back the things that she has said to me growing up. And I remember having a conversation with her, and she had found out about Pinder, and she's like, "Oh, he's kind of dark, and oh, he has no hair, and, and she's, can't you marry this friend of yours or this friend of yours?" And I'm like, "No, and mom, like this is happening." And then she was just not happy with it, and she's like, "No, like I'm never gonna be okay with this." And I said, "Okay, well, you know, like dad has been horrible to you. He's beaten you, drinks all the time, like." There's things that have happened that, like, I'm sure she doesn't want me to talk about, so I'll leave that. But I did say to her, I brought those things up, and I said, "Mom, would you rather have me marry somebody who's Jat, who treats me the way dad treats you, or would you rather have me marry Pinder, who I have an equal partnership with?" And she said, "Marry the Jat." Yes,
I have heard that so many times. There are people in my life who have literally said, "No, it doesn't matter. He has to be Jat." I literally said that to a cousin once. I said, "Would you rather your daughter," exact same example, and it's fucking wild to me that they would pick that over someone. Like, let's talk about that.
Let's put our brain around that. We'd rather have your daughter beaten up and like in an abusive relationship where she literally like,
it's like her safety is of concern.
You'd rather have that for me than have marry this person. And then I flipped the script on her, because I'm like, okay, let's take it back a little bit. Why are these systems in place? And it's because when you have a child or daughter of a certain family, and I understand generations ago we had no income. Our role was to have kids, take care of the house. Okay, so you are of a certain family, you want to have your ladli thi go into the same kind of household, right? And have the same kind of lifestyle. So the caste thing kind of makes sense. So I told my mom, I'm like, okay, so my in-laws have a blueberry farm, and my dad is a mechanic, a tradesman.
Who's more Jat then?
Oh yeah, that didn't land. So I said to her, okay, well, daddy truckan de thalle kam karda a. Oh, hun ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਬੇਰੀ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ ਹੈਗੀ ਆ, ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਣੀ ਜੱਟ, ਅਸੀਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿਖਾਣ. That got me kicked out of my house. And then I picked up my stuff, and because I couldn't reconcile what she was saying and what she wanted for me. And then I realized this is not a safe place for me to be.
So you got kicked out. So where did you go?
My sister was living for school she's going to Emily Carr at the time. And I moved in with her.
No way.
And then I started to realize pretty quickly after I moved out that of how bad it was at home. Because when that's your baseline and that's your normal, and you're used to like glace and screaming and physical fighting and drinking and you know, being controlled, and then you have like peace and quiet, then that's when I realized when I moved out, this is really toxic.
You have space then to realize and to feel.
100%. And then you kind of grow. And that took, And I went to therapy, got counseling, talked about it. And then, well, the other side of it though is then Pinder came back to me and said, well, my parents don't want me to marry somebody who doesn't live at home, who got kicked out of the house. And I was like, I got kicked out of the
literally.
house. Like, then I was like, tu ito dalag.
Yeah.
I'm like, kuda to all of you.
Yeah.
Pinder, I said, beat it.
Yeah.
Parents, I said, okay, later.
Yeah.
Because I realized like I have to be my own advocate. And I'm glad
How old
I
were
did
you?
that.
Sorry, by the way.
So at that point I was 24.
Okay.
24 years old. I had a good job at ICBC. I was doing telephone claims, had the government job with the benefits, right? So I'm like, okay, may I have the penalty khadi ho sakti hai. And I will do it on my own.
Right.
And I think that was really important. And I think that's where if people are in this kind of similar situations, right? I chose myself and I created boundaries. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest takeaway, right? So I am one of my favorite saying as well is you teach people how to treat you.
Totally. You give them the blueprint. Yeah.
So more you disrespect or abuse you'll tolerate, that becomes the baseline, right? Mm-hmm. So if you say you're not treating me like this, then you're eliminating that angst out of your life. Yeah. Right? And then something else, I promise you, it hurts like hell in the beginning, but the universe will fill in that space with something else. Yeah. Yeah. But you have to choose you over these other people.
Yeah. I had no idea actually that you had been kicked out and that, for me, I was expecting the story to go to a place where maybe you ended up living with Pinder or maybe you guys got married right away. But this is such a plot twist for me that you ended up actually saying, okay, fine, beat it. I'm going to choose me. That part of the story is so important because we are not taught to choose ourselves. We're taught to either be a victim to our circumstances and stay where we are, or a lot of girls still in 2024 are conditioned to seek freedom and
I know,
like to seek that at any cost through partnership and marriage. Yeah. So there are still people in my life who are like, oh, I'll go to that place and I'll travel to that place when I'm married, or I'll do this, I'll cut my hair, I'll dye my hair, I'll get this tattoo once I'm married. Yeah. And it's conditioning that our mothers and our fathers put in us, and we just roll with it, even though we know that there's something wrong with that. We just roll with it.
Yeah, it's that whole "bya karke jo marji karo."
Yeah, right. And yet that doesn't guarantee that your life is going to be great. What do you really know at like 23 or 24 about partnership? You don't even, if you've never even established your own baseline of who you are, how could you possibly create a space to understand another person? Right.
And honestly, I do think, and this is not just the realtor in me talking. Yeah, I do think people should live together before getting married. Yeah, absolutely. Everyone's test driving the car, guys. Let's just get past that. Okay? Yeah. So
that is the first time I've heard someone talk about sex that way.
If you all think that they're not, they are. Yeah. So at least let them live together in a space and see if they actually like one another. Yeah. Because I think divorce rates are so high in our community, and that's why. So you've never taken care of yourself. How are you going to take care of somebody else? And then you throw South Asian kids into a family with in-laws. Yes. And there's all these like kind of toxic kind of undertones of daughter-in-law and, and there's the Stutu Mame drama that happens too. And it's just like the whole thing is just, I'm over it. Yeah. People live together for a year. And if you guys still want to get married, yeah. And at that point, if you're like, I'm not spending the rest of my life like this, then move on.
Yeah. I'll tell you a quick little story on the side. So I've wanted to move out and live on my own ever since I was a kid. And it was always such a radical act. I always kept it such a secret because I never saw any other brown women living on their own before they got married. Yeah, you can move away for school or for work, but you don't move out just because you want to. And so 2 years ago, I told my parents, I said, by the age of 28, I'm going to move out. Either it might be I have a partner or it's going to be by myself. And my dad had a panic attack the first time I told him that. And then I said it to him one more time a few months later, again, another panic attack. And so I just sort of let it be. I said, okay, I'm just going to keep this a secret one more time, but I'm going to build my life in such a way that by the time I turn 28, it can happen. And so in the meantime, I have been working on my relationship with fear and guilt and my self-worth, but also my finances. So I talk to my financial advisor all the time and working on the cash budget flow and all of that. And now it's August 2024, and it's 100% certain by either October or November of 2024, I will move out. And I finally had that open conversation with my parents. And my dad said, you know, in our culture, you know, I'll say it in Punjabi first. He says, you know, ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕੁੜੀ ਨੂੰ ਵਿਆਹ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਤੋਰੀਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, right? She should only leave, a daughter should only leave her house when she's married. I said, Dad, why I understand that, but you know, what's the big concern about girls living on their own? And he goes, oh, like, what are people going to think? What are they going to say? I said, I know what you're thinking and I know what they're going to think. Because I'm living on my own, she's probably having premarital sex. There's probably boys coming over. She's probably having premarital sex. I said, that is not the reason women want to live on their own. It's that peace you talked about. It's that having this space to like construct your home in the way that you want to, especially because in our community, girls don't have a home. Women don't have a home. Either you're at your dad's house or you're at your husband's house or your father-in-law's house. Yes. There's no home of your own. You're always told, this is not your house. You're going to go somewhere else one day. And then you get to that house and it's like, well, didn't they teach you anything at your home, at your house? You don't have a home.
That's powerful.
It is. So it's important for us to have our home, you know, but you work on it. You got to work towards it. But I remember just calling it out and saying, if you think it's the premarital sex thing, that is such narrow-minded thinking. That is not the reason women move out. And by the way, it's happening anyway.
Yeah.
It's literally happening anyway.
And the Loki Gay is, oh my God, like, why do we care?
Yeah.
People are going to say things regardless. Like, nagoch. It's like, I try to find that word in any other language.
Nagoch? What does that mean?
It's my favorite word. Nagoch karna. It means like you're going to find something wrong. Patli hogi, maadi lagdi hai, moti hogi, you know, like they make the face, they do the thing.
Yeah.
Cha thandi hai.
Yeah.
You know, or like you go to someone's party.
Yeah.
Bade mircha si.
Yeah.
Noon si jada. Like we never say changa hoya.
Yeah.
Badhiya hoya.
We're conditioned to think negatively, right?
Yeah. All the time we have to pick people apart. And it's the word nagoch.
Totally. Like, I love that word. Nagoch. So does Pinder come back in this story?
Oh yeah, he does. Clearly he does.
Obviously.
So he's gonna be so mad that I shared this. But you know, but I also understand where he was coming from.
Yeah.
He has two loving parents that have a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Always done everything for him.
Mm-hmm.
And now he is marrying this girl who's now been basically disowned by her family.
Well, again, right? Actually, there's so many parallels with the story. It's like she lives on her own. Like she's bad now, right? Yeah. Yeah.
I know, ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, you know, so, and then it's because of him too. Yeah. But like, so his parents for a while were like, Did he Salakia? They come around. We were like really nicely Salakia. Yeah. Like same. Then they bring around like pictures of other girls.
Oh no.
Like there's kudi hegi family Mirla. No. They tried it for a couple months. Now a couple months have passed now. I'm living with my sister. And I'm like, okay, like what is going on? Are we setting a wedding date? I want to get on with my life. And he's like, I can't yet. You know, my parents are still trying to talk me out of it. Yeah. And then, so I went through that a little for a few months. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore. And, you know, I've waited but I also understand your decision. Right. And his parents are lovely people. Like when I got married, I've had such a great relationship with my father-in-law. He passed away, unfortunately, but I was like, finally, I have like a real dad. Yeah. So excited to like come home and like watch the news and everything. And in the end, I remember there was one moment where I made dinner. I would make the gora food and my mother-in-law would make roti. And my father-in-law had like, you know, a couple pegs and he's like, Shannon, I'm so proud of married you. You're a good girl. And like, we always talk, you know, I'm bright. I talk about world things, you know, and, you know, there's a lot to my personality. We got to kind of bond. So
you're kind and you have a big heart and you care about people, so, right?
That was the best compliment that I got from him. He was happy. But I also do realize, you know, it's having sons of my own. Yeah. If they choose somebody and they are not going to be welcomed by her family, that hurts because you would do anything for your kids. So I don't want to fault him. You know, yes, he decided he couldn't make that decision. It was too hard for him to do that to his mom and dad. And I was like, okay, well, in that case, I'm putting a time limit on this. Thank you. And I did say something kind of mean. I'm like, you know, if you see me happy with someone else, like I hope you realize that could have been you. Yeah. And I was like, on that note, I left. And then a few days later.
You chose yourself though, hey?
I chose myself. Yeah. And a few days later, and that's a recurring theme in my life. So a few days later, he came back and said like, hey, I can't live without you. Aww. What do you want me to do?
True.
And that's when I went and met his parents. Yeah. And they were very upset.
Yeah. Hey.
But now they're fine. I gave them 2 grandkids. Like we're living on our own, minding our own business. We don't cause any family drama. We're just in our own little bubble.
Yeah.
So, we're happy.
Were your parents involved in your wedding then?
It's funny. My dad didn't really have an issue with it, which is surprising. But my mom was the one who, even the night before my wedding, was telling me to go jump off the Port Mann Bridge. Yeah. And she had called so Pinder and I had actually gone to set our wedding date. And the court were like, like date set karte. I was like, toba. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
And so we put our $500 deposit down and set our wedding date, and without the parents. Yeah, there was a lot going on.
She told you to jump off a bridge the night before.
And then she called up all my relatives and said, I will kill myself if you go to Shannon's wedding. My own mother.
Oh my God.
And it's so funny because if like you would ask her that now, she'll completely deny it.
Yeah,
all of this happened. All of this happened. And so, and then you just realize, you're like, wow, okay. And this is the thing I see often and actually being in the wedding industry and seeing so many mother-daughter relationships and dynamics, is there are mothers that are like this.
Yeah, 100%.
Like super toxic to their daughters. And it's because they have been treated really toxic. So it's intergenerational trauma where I feel like, thank God I was able to step out of this and realize like, shit, this is not the life that I want. I don't want to be this kind of mom. I don't want to be this kind of friend. I don't want to be this kind of person.
Yeah.
So I'm so thankful that I literally turned out the opposite of my mom.
Yeah. Because, the patriarchy and misogyny does not excuse women. Women are 100% part of upholding that system as well. Right. And it's what they've been fed. It's what they've been taught. Yeah. And quite often what I found in our culture is that the daughter is always the responsibility of the mom, whereas the sons are the responsibility of the father. Yeah. Right. So if you fail as a daughter, she's taking it personally. I have failed as a mother, as a woman. And so they try very hard to keep you in this box to be like, you have to be perfect because your upbringing is extension of my it's a reflection of me, right? And so they do have that.
And there's little other things to kind of come up throughout the years. Like I found out both times, found out early what I was having, and tell my mom, and she's like, oh, yeah. And from a woman to woman to say that, and she knows how much I wanted a daughter. I get it. She went through a lot of trauma until she had a son. And even then things were really bad for her. And, we were always kind of like a burden, but like you should have enough foresight to be able to step back. Yeah. Like you're a woman. I'm a woman. Yeah. What are you saying? Yeah. I just don't have any room for that.
What's your relationship like with her now?
Very estranged. Yeah. Yeah. So after I excused a lot of the behavior until after my dad died. Yeah. So I blamed him. That's why she is the way she is. And she hasn't stopped. She's just kind of ramped up. Yeah. And it's there's a few of us that don't have a relationship with her anymore. Yeah. And it took a long time to get to this spot, but it's for my kind of peace and sanity. Yeah. Because there's nothing ever good or happy. Yeah. Like if my siblings come over, she like calls all of us and creates fights. Like, why are you guys all hanging out together? This is weird stuff where I had to get to a point where like, okay, no. I'm not giving you any more room to cause any issues. I'm going to stay over here, be a mom to my kids. Yeah. Want to see them, you can. But like, as for us, I can't excuse this kind of behavior.
So you chose yourself again. Again, you chose yourself, right? I think we are conditioned to always be there for everybody else and be everything for everybody else.
Yeah. And I do think a lot of people do say like, but did Maya?
Yeah, exactly.
Or like always be the bigger person.
Or to see you know what I mean? You could say that about that too, right?
But we're always as women asked to take the L.
Yeah. Always, literally.
And I'm like, I'm not taking a an L for anybody. No. Like I'm very loving, very kind, but like you piss me off. Yeah. You screw up a boundary with me. Yeah. Or there's any type of bad vibes, I am out of the relationship. I wish you nothing but like love and light and have a good time, but I'm not going to partake in this.
Shannon, have you always had this strong sense of self-worth?
That's the funny thing. I don't think so. I think there's been a strength there. But like I have the hang-ups just like every other woman does. And like I feel like I got into hair and makeup initially and get into beauty because I have a lot of beautiful sisters.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I heard Huda Beauty say this too. She's like, I was the ugly sister. So I got into learning how to do this extra stuff so I could like feel better about myself.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like I was an awkward looking kid, you know, just
hard to believe.
Yeah, no, it was like, but I always had like a really strong, like kind of fashion sense.
Yeah.
Like I was that kid who got a pair of hammer pants made and wore it to school and with big hoop earrings and a Janet Jackson top knot. And it was like, you know, probably looked like a tool. Yeah. I felt good about it. Yeah. You know, so there always was this kind of quiet strength there. But I don't know where it comes from because I do see other women that have gone through the same circumstances as me where it's just broken them. Yeah. Yeah. And like they weren't able to, or they repeat the same cycles. Yeah. So I don't know what it is or what happened or what the timeline was that made me realize like, hey, I don't want that for myself. And these are the moves that I'm going to make in my life. But in my life and in my career too, I'm always going to bet on myself. Yeah. Right? And I think that's important. And if that's the one takeaway for anybody who's listening to this, don't feel guilty about it. Don't feel bad about it. Like, don't obviously do anything wrong to anyone. If you have to, by choosing yourself, if you're screwing somebody over, and you're doing something underhanded, don't move like that. Yeah. But always choose yourself and do things that are for your well-being. Don't put yourself second or last behind other people's needs because you will always live to regret that. Yeah. You'll feel that in your life and it'll manifest its way somewhere. So I think boundaries are important. I do have a few cousins that are like, you know, like very kind of like Zen and kind of like hippie and just forgive and forget. And I'm like, no, like I'm team boundaries, man. Yeah. No, like it's like protect your peace.
Yeah. Is that what you'd say has allowed you to build this current life then? Is that what has really anchored you and ushered in this beautiful life that you have now?
Absolutely. It's just cutting out things that don't feel right, cutting out people that don't feel right, you know, trusting your instincts, doing what's best for yourself and the people that you love. Yeah. I think is really important. And I think that more South Asian women need to have that energy.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also recognizing that like when you're doing that, it's terrifying. Like it's scary because you either have never done it before, you don't have a model for it, you can't trust if it's the right thing to do or not. But I always say that like there is a feeling inside of you that knows what you should be doing more than any other voice outside of you.
Yeah. And the fear it can be, you get imposter syndrome. Yes. It's crippling. When I did the switch, because I had this career, I'm making, you know, okay money and you've got this global notoriety. Hours were terrible though. I don't like waking up at 3 a.m, but I had this job opportunity from the number one real estate team in my area. And Pinder and I have actually bought and sold with the team. So I've had experiences with everyone's personalities and, had a job offer that there's, you know, probably 1,000 other agents would kill for. And I had a choice at that time, either go up to the bat and hit it or leave it and think, what if forever? Yeah. Right. And I was like, I've done this enough times where I left my job at ICBC. You know, I started doing hair and makeup and then, you know, I ended up quitting my job. I took a bet. I bet on me. I won. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I, you know, married the man that I chose, not the one that my parents wanted to. And I will say, I did ask my mom, find me someone. Yeah. Right. Yeah. If you want me to marry somebody, find me somebody who shouldn't. Right. So they weren't able to find somebody. Yeah. So if I would have entertained that, if I hadn't met Pinder, it's not like I'm against arranged introductions. I think it's great. You can pre-screen somebody who wants the same things as you and you guys can get along. I love it. But that option wasn't given to me. So then I chose me again in choosing my partner. And then with the career change too, again, it was, you know, and when I'm teaching, I've taught kind of hair and makeup throughout the years. When I'm teaching students, I do tell them for the first 2 years that you do something, prepare to grind and you're not going to make any money. You're just there to like learn your craft and perfect it. So like, you know, I've done this cycle a couple times And then I was like, you know what? And this is something, real estate is something that I know I have the skills for. I know I care about people and I'm competent. So, and I can, and I've got like a big network now and, you know, lots of followers on social media. And I think I've built a name of trust as well. So now I can translate that into listings. And instead of, you know, taking a picture of a lipstick and naming it, just like the marketing and then posting it, I can do that with a home.
Yeah.
So the orders of, you know, the income, it's orders of magnitude greater, right? So I would, and this is something I've wanted to do for years, but I was booked 2 years in advance. So I couldn't go back to school. COVID changed everything. Yeah. Where I'm like, okay, I can do the course now, which was really, really hard. Yeah. But man, Harpo, there was so many there were so many nights where I'm like, did I do the right thing?
Yeah. The doubt, right?
But I'm jiddi that way.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, "Horn ta kar liya." And people ask me all the time, like, do you want to travel to do hair and makeup for like this? Or you people ask me and I'm like, no, this is my path that I've chosen. Yeah. This is the path I'm going to lead. I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to get pulled into my comfort zone. And now is finally like, I'm 2 years in. Now I'm at the point where the imposter syndrome's gone. I got it. Yeah. Yeah. So, but you know, that's the same. If you see, it's the same cycle that I'm repeating.
Yeah. Again and again, every time I've noticed this, you've chosen yourself. Every single time you've chosen yourself. And I think that is so important to highlight, that you have believed in yourself. And I always think about this too. When someone comes to me and does an interview of my life when I'm like 50 or 60, they're going to be like, Harpo, how did you do it? And I'm going to say, I just really believed in myself every single time, every step of the way. I just believed in myself. And I think that's what I'm noticing for you too. Yeah. I mean, you still have this entire life ahead of you, like this beautiful life ahead of you still, but up to right here, this life that you've built for yourself. The other thing that's etched into my brain forever is you giving Chandan keys to his new car at Cactus during his graduation. And I was crying when I saw that on Instagram because I thought, you know, like to be able, because I know a little bit about the story, but I don't know the entire story, which I just found out today. But to be able to build your life the way that you want to, especially because my motto is building the world that I want to live in.
Yes.
Being able to build your life and to rely only on yourself, right? Have beautiful comrades along the way, but to really choose yourself every single time is so priceless.
It is.
You can have all the money in the world, but that is priceless.
Yeah. And that's one thing I realized too now, like now 50 is around the corner, is that, you know, I think I was for a while a poster child for toxic productivity and like work. And now, you know, I am much more balanced. I want to be there for my kids. And, you know, there is an age gap. I dealt with infertility. Yeah. So, you know, Jordan's an IVF baby and there's 7 years between them. And then I kind of talked about it on social media, like the perimenopause and the feelings and then your child leaving home and all of working through that, which I think we're leaving in 2 weeks. We're driving him to Calgary and he's starting his life in, you know, it's on res at school. It's hard, but I'm so glad I have the other little one at home. Yeah. So, and Shannon sometimes says it too, because I worked a lot. Yeah. When he was young and he's like, you know, I feel like you're really there for Jorn. First, he was a little bit more, at first, I think a little bit more resentful because he gets a lot more attention. Yeah. But I think babies, the youngest ones always do. But now he's like, I really love this for you guys that you have realized this and we're past the point where you know, money is not important. Like I am very driven by like success and like doing a good job and being good at something, but it's not the end all be all at the end of the day. You just, and I also think too, like especially for this generation that's on social media, guys, comparison is the thief of all your joy. Like just work with, you can create a beautiful life in your own context. And apne, we compare so much, like so-and-so's gaddi, so-and-so's car, so-and-so's. No. If you guys can shut that noise out and just do what feels right for you in your circumstances, you can create that beautiful life. And it's going to look different for everyone. And every relationship is different too.
Totally. Yeah. So we're nearing the end. And I want to ask you, have you had a chance to read the birthday card that I wrote you yet?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was really, really nice. I actually opened it and the Buddha beads and the incense. Yeah. And it was really beautiful and touching. I was going to post it yesterday. Yeah. Then I got into my negotiations.
No, it's all good. The reason I bring it up is because what I wrote on there is what I want to say here is that what I admire the most about you is your integrity. as a young woman who is building her integrity and her relationship with integrity. To me, the word integrity, the definition of it is wholeness. It's not like, it's not morals. It's not values. It's wholeness. It's like being whole in who you are. And wholeness to me also translates into authenticity. Like you get to be authentically yourself. You get to be whole. And that to me is integrity. And as a young woman who is working on that relationship, you've come into my life very recently, just in the last couple of years, but at a time where I am building integrity, and I can look to you as a really strong beacon and example of integrity. And you move so much in integrity, and I admire that the most about you. You are so about what you say.
Thank you. That's like, honestly,
seriously,
I read the card and like I had tears in my eyes. I'm like, that's like the ultimate compliment.
Yeah.
And, and I think that's why I feel like you and I have very like similar spirit and kind of ethics too.
Yeah.
I think are important. Just, be who you are, tell the truth, and just move through life authentically, but just be a good person.
Yeah.
Like it's really not that hard. Just don't be an asshole.
Yeah. 100%. So the last question I'll ask you is, if you could give your younger self a piece of advice, what would that be? And the reason I ask is because there are women of that age who are listening to this episode. And when you give yourself that advice, I think they'll also hear it as advice for themselves.
And I think the best advice I would give, and it's funny because I'm reflecting back to, and my sister talked to me about this the other night, my baby sister, she and I are like really, really close. And she's like, Shannon, I wish you would believe in yourself more. Like I have relied on people and sometimes worked on things that I probably shouldn't have. Right. And I should have done things kind of alone.
Yeah. And given away your magic.
Yeah. And I think that is something, if I could go back in time, I would put myself first. And I do think that I'm a giving person. I've been taken advantage of for sure by people. And, I never wanted to change who I am, but I did learn lessons as well. And now I learn to recognize that quality in people really quick.
Yeah.
So there is like, it's funny that, because my sister looks at me and she's like, I wish you were more confident. And I wish I didn't rely on others and I didn't spend so much time uplifting others and kind of watered my own grass more throughout my life.
Yeah. So that's the advice you would give.
That's the advice if I could go back and talk to younger Shannon. Say like, girl, you got this.
Yeah.
You don't need anybody else. You don't need anybody's help. You can do that's all on your own. I believe in you. Right. And I think as a lot of South Asian women, that voice in us of not believing in ourselves, that gets us in trouble. Yeah. Because it makes us stay in toxic relationships. It makes us stay in toxic friendships. It makes us keep toxic family members around. Yeah. Is that trying to always kind of keep the peace, or and also that not belief of yourself, or not thinking that you're completely enough. Like, you have some skills, but you're not quite enough just on your own. Yeah. We got to remember we're not going to, no one's ever going to be perfect, but who you are as you are innately is valuable, and you are enough just as you are. And then don't try to be somebody else too. Yeah. I think that the whole comparison is the thief of all joy too. I do believe that social media can be so toxic. Yeah. I don't think that it's completely honest, and people are, comparing themselves to AI models, and girls are thinking they're not pretty enough, and people are breaking their ribs and getting BBLs and doing all this kind of stuff to get these unrealistic beauty expectations. And it's not real. Yeah. And, I think that's something that's really beautiful about you is I feel like you have this aura of like self-acceptance and self-love. Where I wish people would do that more. And now, and I was guilty of it too. Like when somebody gives me a compliment, it has been also a little hard to accept. Yeah. Because then on the other side of it too, like it doesn't feel natural to get kind of accolades and like attention. It doesn't feel quite like, even like cutting my birthday cake, I was a little bit uncomfortable. Really? Yeah. Like I like to host. Yeah. I want to create beautiful experiences for people. But when I'm the center of attention, I don't. It's not my jam. It makes me uncomfortable. And I feel like it's a little, like I get kind of a cringy vibe from it. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I need to put a pin in this. Why do I feel like this? Yeah, come back to it, right? Yeah. So I'm trying to like figure that is just accept it, but still be humble. And I think that's really ironic because a lot of people meet me and they're like, you're so nice. Yeah. And I'm like, why wouldn't I be? Because I think they have this connotation with like, I think that most people have had experiences where
they have this big life, lavish life. They are bougie. They have the designer, this and that. They have the nice car and the nice house, and they have the quote unquote perfect life, but they are still not kind people.
Yeah.
They've actually only done those things to fill in the gaps of what life actually didn't give them, right?
Yes.
So your life could have turned out vastly different, right? You could have still had all these things, but the way that you got them and how you relate to like all the things that you have, the materialness, could have been vastly different. I think people are naturally accustomed to thinking, if you have all of that, you must be an asshole.
Yeah.
Right? Because how else would you have gotten that? But I think what I've learned in my journey so far is that you can actually have all of that and more by being humble, by being like heart-centered, coming from your heart, being a loving and kind person. Yeah. And actually that is good karma. And I know people see people all the time who have all these great things and a great life, but they're so actually so empty, and they treat people so horribly. And so those relationships aren't very meaningful anyway, right?
And I do think success will show you who somebody really is.
100%.
So when people are like, oh, you're really nice. And I was like, okay, that means that you might be a closet asshole.
Yeah.
To me.
Could be.
I'm like, I gotta worry. Like when someone says to me, I'm like, I gotta worry about you.
Yeah.
If you're saying if you were me, you would not be a nice person.
Yeah.
So that just means you're not a nice person.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Yeah. It's contingent on what I have, on what you have, right?
Like it's just a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
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 So just be kind, be nice.
Yeah.
You know, don't be too nice. You know,
Yeah.
because I think that's a big trap for us South Asian girls, is we are too nice.
Just be authentic. Like if it requires being nice in that moment, be that. But if the next moment it requires you being straight and having boundaries, be that.
Yeah.
Right?
I think I'm trying to navigate that throughout life. And I'm sure I pissed people off along the way. And you know what?
You know what? I actually read a quote where it's like, if everybody likes you, you're not being authentic, because then you're just shape-shifting to be something to someone all the time.
Yeah. No.
Well, it takes great, immense courage to be yourself in this world. And I'm so happy that you are yourself, Shannon. And thank you for coming on the podcast. I've wanted to do this for so long. And we finally made it happen. So thank you.
I'm super proud of you, and I'm super excited to hear like these conversations, and they're a lot deeper than I think other podcasts, and they are super relatable. So like I said this before, is you are going to change the world.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
So cheers.
Thank you.
On
cheers
that note,
to you.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Shannon.